Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to go and interview someone called Douglas Carswell, who is UKIP's sole MP. He used to be a Conservative MP but defected last year, caused a bit of a stir as he did so. Now I strongly oppose UKIP, but Douglas Carswell's interesting because he's a very thoughtful guy. He's a bit of an intellectual, and I think, you know, we're going to probably disagree quite passionately over lots of issues, probably have a bit of a knockabout, but we might even have some common ground.
Who do you want to be Labour leader, by the way?
Who do I want to be Labour leader? Well, I'm supporting Jeremy Corbyn because he's putting
Me too.
He's putting on
UKIP for Jez.
But he's putting on the agenda issues which I think are important, which is a genuine living wage without in-work benefits.
I want Jeremy Corbyn.
But do you know what? And this is what I want to see what you think about this.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Jeremy Corbyn, in the 1980s, he made a number of stances which were seen as very unpopular. He opposed apartheid whilst Margaret Thatcher was saying the ANC were terrorists. He marched...
he wasn't the only one opposing apartheid.
Let me finish. He marched against Saddam Hussein when our government was arming Saddam Hussein. He marched for LGBT rights when that was seen as a loony left thing to do. He said that the government should talk to Sinn Féin when that was seen as an extreme thing to do, was the basis of Northern Ireland police process. He was pretty right on all those things, surely, in hindsight.
On one of the reasons why the world is better is precisely because, you know, social attitudes have changed to difference, and that's wonderful.
The NHS. Do you agree with...
I'm in favour.
Well, Paul Nuttall, he's the obviously deputy leader, he thinks the very existence of the NHS divers competition, he said that. Nigel Farage thinks it should be replaced with a public insurance model.
Yeah, come on. I have to say, I'm a bit surprised. You're digging up stuff from months ago.
Well, have they changed? He surely still believes in it, unless he's just flip-flopping around.
UKIP fought an election where our healthcare policy was trusted more than any other party's policy. And I would suggest one of the reasons why we ate into the Labour vote so effectively is precisely because we are seen as being credible on the NHS.
But this strikes me as a contradiction in the heart of your thinking, because you're someone, you've made a very passionate case for the free market and the role of the free market. Why is the NHS exempt? Why not just have a free market in healthcare provision?
You need the NHS for lots of reasons. One of the reasons why you need it is because there are some things that I think are probably best that are not provided by big corporate suppliers.
How much private sector involvement would you have within the NHS?
That's really a question for Labour Party leaders to contend with.
You've got, with UKIP's policy, how much should the private sector have a role in the provision of healthcare?
I wouldn't rule it out completely.
It just seems odd that we have this big state organisation. You're someone who believes in the free market, so why?
It's intellectually very coherent to say that the state should fund things and the state should pay for things, but you can have, in some cases, private contractors providing that service. The state doesn't have to produce and supply everything. If you want to be purist about this, great, you'll get a cheer on Twitter, but you won't get many votes in swing seats.
You used to be a Conservative MP, that's how you were first elected. You obviously defected to UKIP.
I got to the stage where I thought I'd rather not be in politics than carry on.
When was that?
Summer last year.
Why?
I no longer believe in my old party, and I no longer believe that the people in charge of it want change and want the change that I think this country desperately needs.
Are you a small C Conservative still, or a Libertarian?
I'm a Libertarian. I used to think of myself as Conservative with a big C and a small c. Obviously, I left the Conservative Party, so I'm not a big C Conservative. As a Libertarian, I may have dumped the Conservative bit, but I'm very pro the free market.
How would you sum up David Cameron?
A patrician, very, very bright patrician Conservative who is the repository of every failed orthodoxy of the age.
Oh, ouch. What comes across with you? You want this grassroots libertarian movement on the right, and UKIP is basically, it's a personality cult. It's not a grassroots movement.
I don't agree with you. We have more than 50,000 members. I think we need to look seriously at how we can change that by harnessing the internet. We haven't really discovered how to do that. I think the strongest thing we need to go on is political reform, changing the way that the people in the building behind preside over us. We need, I think, to go on the idea of real far-reaching democratic reform in this country.
20 years, Nigel Farage has suggested that he wants to stay in.
I think he may have been a little tongue-in-cheek, but the serious point is this. I don't want to be leader, and I don't want anyone other than Nigel.
So you never ever want to be leader?
Absolutely.
So you'd be if he was leader for 20 years, that'd be fine?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be leader. And
But would it
I
be
don't
okay
want,
for him
I don't
to
want
be-
anyone else to be leader. I'm very happy with him being leader.
Tax. UKIP wants to raise the personal allowance to £30,500 and introduce a 35p rate of tax as well. Now, the Resolution Foundation did the maths on this. They worked out the poorest 10% would get £35 a year extra. The second poorest would get £74 a year extra. The 10th richest, so people right at the top of the top 10% of society, they would get £1,143 extra a year. So are you going to find it difficult, because you're going to personally benefit from this budget, you're going to get extra money in your pocket?
Oh, most of my constituents will benefit from
Well,
the budget.
no, actually,
No, they will.
I'm
The
afraid,
freeze off your duty
according
and-
to the Institute for Fiscal Studies,
Yeah.
that millions of low-paid workers are going to be
were
worse
telling-
off.
Yeah,
Millions.
You refer to the IFS as the sort of the high priests of economics.
In real terms, those families are going to be worse off. That's what, and that your constituents are going to be worse
You
off.
keep saying that. I don't agree with you, Owen.
You don't agree with them, you don't agree with the experts, not me. Ignore me.
The
I'm just
the experts who didn't see the gaping fiscal
There's
hole. You put so much faith and confidence in experts, and yet these are the same experts who failed
Okay.
to see the mess that we're in when it was being made.
If it does turn out that large numbers of low-paid workers in your constituency are worse off, will you regret voting for a budget which drives low-paid workers in your constituents further into poverty?
If I thought this budget would do what you said, Owen, I wouldn't approve of it. But I think, like on many things, you're wrong.
Do you need that money?
I think people, you and I and everyone around us is wiser at spending the money that they've earned than George Osborne. Why, Owen, for a socialist, why are you so keen on giving George Osborne more control over your life?
I just want more money spent on things which
But
actually
it will be
benefit
spent by
people.
people like George Osborne. I think that my constituents need to be allowed to keep more of their money. It is a morally better society that allows them to keep more of their money. And if the left wants to take a holiday from history and go down the socialist route, great. That is UKIP's chance. That is the chance for my party to displace yours.
I'm saying your constituents aren't on £68,000 a year. So yes, of course, they're low-paid workers. Of course, they need extra money, but their in-work support is being taken away, while people like you at the moment are benefiting.
I'm surprised that you're kind of personalising this so much, but if you want
I'm not
to
personalising it.
carry on
Okay,
the intro
I'll
on
talk
that
about me.
basis, why don't you write out a cheque now and we'll pop it round to the Treasury? There's nothing to stop you paying more of your income if you want to. That would be really moral, Owen. How much more are you volunteering to give?
I want people who are...
How much more are you volunteering
I want
to
to pay
give?
more tax.
How much?
I want everybody
let's
to
do
pay
that
more
now.
tax.
Let's do that now. Come on,
because this is the point. Let me explain.
In the
19th century...
Owen, nothing's stopping you. Let's
In
go
the
and do it.
19th century...
The Treasury will take your cheque.
In the
Let's go and do it
19th
now.
century...
Come on, let's go.
Let me
Let's go and
finish.
do it.
Come on, Douglas. In the 19th century, we had a system of Victorian philanthropy which depended on rich people doling out money at a whim. And this was what Clement Attlee's government tried to get rid of, because they said, and so Francis Beckett's biographer of Clement Attlee said this:
familiar with Clement
if the rich man wants to help the poor, he should pay his taxes gladly, not dole out money at a whim. Now, if we have a collective system, that's the point. And you talked about collectivism before.
So you want my
where you
constituents to pay
tax
more?
No. I want low-paid workers to have support. This is the problem, because in your constituency, their support's been taken away, whilst people like yourself are benefiting. Look at the National Health Service. Look at the education system. I'm comprehensive educated. I owe everything to comprehensive education. You depend on people who've been trained up by the education system. We depend on law and order. We depend on banks which have been bailed out by the taxpayer. We all depend on the state, so we all have to pay something back. And that's the point, isn't it? It's not about, I'm confiscating money.
I'm not an anarchist, Owen. Sometimes you talk to me as if you think that I am an anarchist.
I don't think you're an anarchist, but do you think, like me...
Very rarely.
I'm sure that's the truth. That tax is important to fund public services, and that you should pay according to your ability to pay taxes. Simple, straightforward vote.
I think
principle.
Of course you need some level of tax and you need some level of public service provision, but I tend to think the reason why the world has got so much better is because more and more things we can run for ourselves rather than having to depend on small elites to make the decisions for us. And what you're essentially arguing for is a model that would re-empower the sort of government elites whom I think are the last people we should be putting in charge of.
I just think people should be taxed according to their wealth, and we should use that to fund the public services we all depend on as a society.
I know,
basic principle.
I know you're a staunch socialist, and I admire that, and I hope that the Labour Party listens to you, and I hope Jeremy Corbyn triumphs, and I hope that the Labour Party goes for this no-holds-barred radical socialism.
I'm just applying the same principles as you. You want the National Health Service run by the public, publicly funded, taxes to be collected properly to fund that NHS. That's just the principle I believe in.
Owen, it's been a great pleasure.
Yeah, you too. So that interview kind of showed what I kind of already thought about Douglas Carswell, that he's not a demagogue like Nigel Farage. He's a bit of an intellectual in his own way. He's got an ideology, a coherent ideology. I'm not very sympathetic about it. It was really interesting, thoughtful, I thought. It was a bit passionate, a bit of a knockabout, as I thought it would be. But we're going to do lots more interviews, so let me know who you think I should interview, what are the sorts of topics we should be chatting about. Keep leaving your comments, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time.